Could you not use that same argument for what the left did in 2000 or 2016?
They, there was some crazy stuff happening then, but they didn't try and overthrow the government. They didn't go into the Capitol and smash the place up.
It's not an insurrection. No, there was no overthrowing of the government.
Yeah.
The Defense Department wasn't involved. Generals weren't. There wasn't a coup. As Joe Biden once said, you'd need an F-15 for that, right?
What's going on, everyone? James Klug here. Welcome back to Volume 2 of Do People Think Republicans Are Fascists? So our previous video left us with some unanswered questions. So today I've come back to Laguna Beach, California to see if I can clear some things up. Let's go talk to some people. Huge shout out to our friends over at Undertac for sponsoring this video. Joe Biden referring to MAGA Republicans as semi-fascists. Do you agree with that?
Partially, yeah.
Do you agree with that take?
I do.
Do you agree with it?
No.
Why is that?
He said that the MAGA Republicans were the greatest threat to democracy right now, which is...
Yeah, the foundations of our republic, I think is the quote.
Yeah. Absolutely the dumbest thing a president could say. It's very divisive. And frankly, it just shows how the lack of mental faculties he has left.
Yeah, I think it's an overgeneralization, probably. Yeah.
What do you think? Do you agree with
That's
that?
ridiculous. It's, the left claims that people need to be more understanding and get together, and yet he is incredibly divisive.
Completely disagree.
Completely disagree.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think that...
Well, fascist, the definition is someone who, is a corporate control of government, which actually I think is what we have right now with our president right now, but that is not what a MAGA Republican, the MAGA Republican would want a limited government. So our country was founded on a principle of limited government, and that's what Republicans want.
So why partially yeah, would you say?
Well, there's a lot of people that just been led astray. I don't think they recognize what they're doing. I have a lot of friends that turned into MAGAs, and it's just baffling to me.
Is it fascist or semi-fascist?
I would go with semi.
What is that? What is the difference?
It's kind of stupid. I don't like labeling things to begin with. I think Biden, he was trying not to upset people any more than he already has. So he went with semi, I
don't know if...
Biden...
Did that work?
Nothing completely works.
It's a cult. I know that you probably think it's talking like the news, but it's true. A lot of these people don't have any intelligent explanations of why they follow somebody, especially when there's so many lies involved, of how he got there.
It's important to know why you
Yeah.
believe certain things.
Exactly. For me, it's about facts.
Okay, so what's a MAGA Republican then?
A person that follows the cult leader, that to make America great again, you have to have behavior similar to his, which is shameful.
My understanding is it's someone that supported Trump, but not to this extremist, definition that Biden has given anyone that happened to vote for Trump either.
I think a lot of people voted for Trump because they didn't like what they were seeing in Washington, and that's why they voted for an outsider. That's what a MAGA Republican is, but what they've made it now is they've made it a term that means that they want to mean extremist and divisive.
My question is, if we really think that, why? And could you use that same argument for crazy people on the left?
Yeah, you could use that. I hate both extremes, honestly. But when it comes to the fascist labeling, that was authoritarian, what Trump was doing. He tried to overthrow the election, basically. I mean, how much more do you want to get?
I hear that argument, and I see where you're coming from. The only problem I have with this is, could you not use that same argument for what the left did in 2000 or 2016?
There was some crazy stuff happening then, but they didn't try and overthrow the government. They didn't go into the Capitol and smash the place up and threaten to kill the vice president. That's like a whole nother level.
There was a lot of threatening to kill the president, vice president, etc. But you're saying, so there was because of you would refer to it as, let's say, insurrection, the storming of the Capitol. That was the fascist act.
Absolutely.
Was it fascist when radical leftists attacked the White House, injuring 60 Secret Service agents, damaging property, etc.?
When did that happen?
Right after George Floyd's death.
I don't remember that.
We come across people that do believe that Republicans are fascists. One reason, I'll give you one reason.
Sure.
They'll throw January 6th at me.
Okay.
What would your response to that be?
I think calling it an insurrection is and I know I'm not allowed to say that word, that it's just, but you've got to have something, you know, a cuss word is an expletive for a reason, right? Like, it gets your attention. Yeah. And when I say the word I wanted to get your attention. Like, it's not an insurrection. No, there was no overthrowing of the government. Somebody sitting in a chair, you know, is not an insurrection. The Defense Department wasn't involved. Generals weren't, there wasn't a coup. It was, you know, an unfortunate event of you know, dozens or 100 people. I couldn't even tell you how many people were involved. How many people have been arrested? Do you know?
It's hundreds, but violent. Most of them are trespassing charges.
Okay. As Joe Biden once said, you'd need an F-15 for that, right?
All right, you guys, let's talk about today's sponsor. These guys have been with me the entire year, and I'm so thankful. And you've heard me say this before. Too many of us are wearing some old dude's name on our underwear, and if you think about it, that is objectively weird. Stop doing that. Thankfully, there's Undertac underwear. Originally designed for special forces operators, these are quite literally the ultimate pair of underwear. They're made with high quality material that's antibacterial, moisture wicking, and will have you feeling cool, comfortable, and dry all day long. Oh, and they even have a little escape and evasion pocket which can store money or any other small items. And here's the best part. They're almost 30% less than the competition. You guys, I've been loving wearing these, and I know you will too. Ditch your old underwear and go with a patriotic company like Undertac. Visit getundertac.com. That's getundertac.com. They're giving all of my subscribers a 20% discount site-wide with the offer code KLUG20. And if this isn't enough, Undertac donates a portion of their profits to veteran-run organizations that are actively fighting human trafficking. That's getundertac.com, getundertac.com, offer code KLUG20. Make sure you use that. Let's get back into the video. Okay, overgeneralization. Would you guys consider yourselves more liberal or more conservative, would you say?
Independent.
Independent? Okay.
Yeah, in the middle. Like,
middle.
I don't like either side.
They've pointed to January 6th as their reasoning for saying, yes, they are fascists. What would your guys' response to that be as people in the center?
I think that was a small collection of people that decided to do that, right? And obviously, like, no one, I think, in their right mind would condone doing something like that.
I remember the Portland stuff, and I remember you know, some riots or demonstrations by the you know, in Washington D.C. where they sent out the National Guard or the military, but I don't remember them injuring agents or anything like that.
Even in Portland, they tried to set on fire a federal building with federal agents inside the Marco Hatfield Federal Courthouse.
Yeah, they went crazy in Portland.
Nuts, but it was also all across the country that this stuff was happening. A lot of people, when we talk about January 6th, a lot of people are bringing up the other riots that were going on, saying, okay, well, there wasn't a big problem with this, but there's a big problem here. I think it's fair to say, okay, idiots that riot are idiots, but the question I'm having is, okay, well, what makes them a fascist? If it's just a riot at the Capitol, Democrats did that essentially too, but at the White House. Basically, a lot of people bring up January 6th.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, of course, because that's been you know, fed to them as if, you know, that's the you know, they broaden it so that it's all the Republicans driven by Trump and everybody, they're all evil.
We don't do that. As conservatives, we don't blame all Democrats, for the riots in Portland and the riots in Seattle. We blame those particular groups. But the problem is a lot of the Democrats don't know what happened there because the media didn't cover it.
Right. Well, the media fed them a different narrative.
Right.
Fascism is a guy that believes into autocracy, into we are better, we tell you what to do. Semi-fascist is somebody that is comfortable with having someone like that to tell them what to do, which is like this cult that follow Trump. You know, if somebody can tell me what to do, I just believe them, whatever they tell me. So that's what I think is a semi-fascist.
Yeah. Authoritarian, centralized autocracy, that one man that rules it all.
Exactly.
I want to know what the difference is between that and the left right now.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Biden is one of the greatest centralizers of, you know, the federal government in American history.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a problem with him using OSHA to enforce federal vaccine mandates?
You know, that's a hard question to do because, first of all, I'm not a doctor, and second, I also have never dealt with a problematic when you're dealing with the public and you're dealing with a pandemic. If you're not a scientist, we can have an opinion of what is best for you, or vaccine, no vaccine, whatever it is. But when it comes to a domain that I don't know, I'm not an expert, I try to follow the experts, you know?
I understand the like having a scientific conversation around it and the effectiveness of doing something like that. But we're talking about, it's actually more of a political question.
Yeah.
It's bypassing Congress to create law yourself. It's a political question. Is that okay?
No, I mean, I think in that respect, because I don't think, Biden is God or does everything. It's because, I believe in democracy. And I know he has done some things that I would have preferred that he did it differently. And that could be one of them, because I'm more for getting the opinion of other people. I don't know why he made the decision, if it was to the point where he had to do it, or it would be, I don't know, a lot of people dying or hospitals not functioning.
Well, it was struck down because it was unconstitutional.
Exactly.
They
But
knew it was.
I agree with your point.
What would qualify a MAGA Republican as being semi-fascist?
What would be a Republican who's fascist? Would be like anti-immigration, anti-immigrants, anti-Asians, anti-blacks, anti-minorities.
That sounds like a racist, is what you're saying.
Well, fascist would be someone that's. How would you describe the word fascist then?
I'm curious how you would describe it after hearing that. Do you know what the definition? Like, do you know what a fascist is?
Fascist is someone that is. My understanding would be a fascist would be someone that is. I guess it's kind of similar to a racist.
The ones that broke into the Capitol did try to stop the proceedings to elect.
Okay, so that's what we're saying is like Trump makes Trump fascist and MAGA Republicans. That's not that many people that were actually. Most people were charged with trespassing, and if they were damaging property, that's not good. But how many people were, being charged with actually trying to stop it from happening? Not that many.
But okay, so let's say that the 200 or so people.
And by the way, Democrats in 2016 tried to stop the certification of the election as well, just to let you know, as well as in 2000, as well as in 2004.
Well, I remember the Al Gore issue,
Right.
And he conceded. Trump wouldn't concede.
I think a lot of people agree with you. It's not good for the climate of the nation to not concede an election. But did Democrats concede the 2016 election largely, would you say?
Yeah, they did. Hillary had a concession speech, and everybody was shocked in disbelief. A lot of people didn't want to concede it, but it was conceded.
Hillary wasn't conceding the election.
They didn't go to court.
And then she did concede it, and then she brought up after she conceded, saying that the election was stolen from her. So she technically actually didn't concede.
That
also,
was more of a term stolen, and you can say, oh, something was stolen without evidence, but she didn't go to court.
Filing a court case is what makes you a fascist.
Well, God, you're getting hung up on the fascist thing.
Well, that's what I'm talking about here, because this is an important topic. And by the way, they spent tens of millions of dollars investigating Trump-Russia collusion. The narrative was that Trump was a Russian operative. Just to remind us of what happened, it was 4 years of Trump-Russia collusion claims.
Yeah, well, there's more to the Trump-Russia story than we know.
If anything, there's more to it.
I would believe so.
Well, okay, so you would more lean towards maybe the 2016 election was stolen and Trump colluded with Russia to win it.
Oh no, I wouldn't. I think he won.
So you're an election denier.
How would you define it?
So the definition of a fascist, it would be like somebody that is an authoritarian, wants centralized autocracy.
Like Putin would be considered a fascist.
That's absolutely. You could call. Call them
right.
that.
Exactly. That
So
would be
are you changing your mind on calling them semi-fascist then, or you still stand by that?
Well, I would think that. So my previous comment was that they are racist for sure, but I still think some of the Republicans, in terms of like they were trying to overturn the election, like saying that it was a stolen election. Fascist would be the wrong word to use. So in that sense, a fascist would be the wrong word to use.
The reason why I'm bringing that up is because we're talking about centralized autocracy. We're talking about people that support a leader basically legislating on their own.
Yeah.
could you make that argument for the left wing just as much as you could make it like you're making it for the right wing? Is kind of the reason why I brought that up. Because the left seems to do that as well.
If it happens to that extent,
they seem to be doing that.
Yes, I wouldn't agree too much on that. I wouldn't agree too much that it's going the same way, because this is why he's not getting a lot of the stuff Biden that he wanted. Because a lot of them has been blocked by the Congress.
And I definitely understand the concept of not being able to do something because it can't get through Congress. Right here, though, we're talking about bypassing Congress. We're talking about bypassing Congress for federal eviction moratorium, using the CDC to do that, even though you're being told that, by the Supreme Court that it's unconstitutional, but doing it anyways. That's another example of something that Joe Biden has done. So again, I guess my question is, we're bringing up that MAGA Republicans are fascist because of that willingness for centralized autocracy. Is the left not doing the same thing?
Not that, the same thing I answered you before, not to the same extent.
What extent are they doing it on the right then? I guess it would be my next question.
On the right, I think it's more of the thing that, first of all, they don't even have a majority, and they get away with it, And even now that they're a minority, they still get away with things,
Do you mind if I ask what you're talking about?
Well, I'm talking to things that are easily observed. I mean, there's so many sometimes that it's hard to do. I would agree to remove the R-15s. We don't need to do that. Nobody needs that unless you're going to war.
So to resist fascism, semi-fascism, or fascism, to resist that, you think that turning over the guns would prevent that uprising, you would say? Turning over your guns to the federal government? Excuse me, we're doing interviews. Can we ask you? That's what you think?